Hello fantasy managers and welcome back to another video from myself, Will, and fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. In this video we're going to be going over 7 players to avoid for game week 1. Let's get into it. Before we jump into it, if you're new around here and you're interested in more FPL content, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really does help the channel out, encouraging me to do more of these videos. If you do enjoy the video, please hit the like button as well. Okay, so number 1 on my players to avoid less is the one and only Kevin De Bruyne. And you might be thinking, why has this guy got Kevin De Bruyne on his players to avoid list? He's an absolute beast when it comes to FPL. And I agree, Kevin De Bruyne is an absolute beast when it comes to FPL. He's got everything that you could possibly want. He's playing for a really attacking team. He was the highest scoring player overall last season. He's probably been underpriced at 11.5. He's on penalties. He gets, creates so many chances for that City team. And of course, he does deliver on the goals front as well. As you can see, lots of goals, lots of expected goals, lots of assists on our Fantasy Football Hub OPTA Stats tool. But guys, if we just jump over to the fixture tick, and I know many of you guys will already know this, but I think it is kind of worth highlighting. You look at the first 4 game weeks, Man City have the worst run of fixtures sorted by attack. Obviously, it's Man City. Obviously, they can score against anyone, but they can't score against a blank team. So don't play in game week 1. So for me, Kevin De Bruyne, I think he's one of the highest selected midfielders. I really can't understand that. They got a blank in game week 1. They play a really tough fixture in game week 2 against Wolves away. Then they play Leicester at home. Now, that's an opportunity where I'm actually looking to bring Kevin De Bruyne in. So I'm just saying avoid him for the first 2 game weeks and then look at ways potentially to bring him in. I quite like the Aubameyang to the De Bruyne switch. So Arsenal coming down to the players that you want to bring in. Arsenal here, and if you look just over the first 2 game weeks, Arsenal are top of the list. So Aubameyang, fantastic pick. Fulham away, West Ham at home. You could potentially captain him in both of those picks, and then you could switch over to De Bruyne. So that's currently my thinking. It's a very loose plan at the moment. Obviously, you've got to remain flexible and plans do change. So Kevin De Bruyne selected by over 37% of managers. He's one of the highest selected players in the entire game. But for me, to start the season at least, he's an avoid. Okay, so coming in at number 2 is another pick from last season who absolutely bossed it last season. But I just don't think he's going to be the same player this time around. And of course, I'm talking about Lord Lundstrom. So coming in at 5.5 midfielder this season. Obviously, he started last season at a criminally underpriced 4.0 as a defender. He obviously scored an incredible amount of points. So since the restart under Chris Wilder, he just hasn't been guaranteed that game time. And coming in at 5.5 for a midfielder, I think that, he's been fairly priced. I wouldn't say he's been underpriced, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be a regular starter. And you don't really want to be changing around your position within that bracket. So for me, Lord Lindstrom, and there are quite a few other good options around 5.5. You're looking at likes of St. Maximan, or even go a little bit cheaper with Souček from West Ham. I think both of those are better picks than Lundstrom. So for me, he's owned by 13.5% of the game at the moment, and I just don't see the reasoning for that, especially when he's not really guaranteed those starts under Chris Wilder. I think that he certainly could become an option at some stage during the season, but I think given the information we have now, given the fact that his minutes were limited in the restart, then for me, he's a player to avoid for sure. Okay, coming in at number 3, and it is another controversial one. Now, let me know in the comments whether you agree with this or not. We had Adam Hockcroft on Friday, who had this player in his team. Adam, of course, is a very, very good player. He's got 6 top 10k finishes. He's never finished outside the top 35k in 9 seasons. So if you do want to check that video out, I would recommend doing it now. But I'm going to put my neck on the line here and say that this guy is a player to avoid. And of course, I'm talking about Sadio Mane. Now, let me say that I think Sadio Mane is a brilliant FPL pick. I'm just going to say that out there. But the reason I think that Sadio Mane is a bad pick is just simply because this guy here. Now, if you look at their numbers, you look at their stats across the board, Salah just outperforms it in pretty much every category. Salah's going to be on pens with Milner having reduced minutes. Salah's going to take most of the penalties. He's got higher expected assists. He's got higher expected points. He's got higher expected goals. Big chances it's close. Shots inside the box high. Shots on target. He's bossing Mane on all the key stats. Now I know Mane is he's probably a better finisher than Salah. He does get the chance that he does get are often better. So I think Salah should have been priced at 12.5, and I think Mane should have been priced at 12, and that would have given us a bit of a decision to make. But I think pricing Salah at 12 million and Mane at 12 million, just for me personally, it makes it a no-brainer, and it's not one that I've really given any thought to. It's just Salah comes out on top. Now, if you look at since the restart, I think that was game week 31, the difference becomes even more stark. So for me, looking at recent form, looking at the Community Shield as well, neither of them really performed in that, but for me, Salah is pretty much the main man for Liverpool when it comes to an FPL decision. So I don't really see any good reason for going Mane over Salah. Some of you might be saying, well, why don't you go both of them? They're both good FPL picks. I just think, spending 24 million on your midfield for both of these guys when, they're likes of Aubameyang as well in there, then I just don't see, the justification for that either. Just too much of your budget gone. Mane over 12% owned in the game. For me, he's a player to avoid. Okay, my fourth player to avoid is Tammy Abraham. Now, this guy is selected by over 7% of managers. I do quite like him as a player, but, with Timo Verna coming into that Chelsea side, I think that he's really, really going to struggle to get minutes. So for that reason, it's not a player which I've seen in a lot of teams, but I just can't understand how, 7% of the entire game owns this guy. I think he's probably even behind Giroud in the pecking order at the moment. I do think that he still has a future at Chelsea, and potentially at some stage in the season, if Werner got injured or there was a slight change in formation or whatever it is, and this guy could certainly become an option. But I just can't understand how he's so highly owned with Timo Verna in, with him probably at the moment, even behind Giroud. So for me, Tammy Abraham, 100% player to avoid. Okay, so my fifth player to avoid is another Liverpool asset. So I'm going to have a look at Liverpool players here. And as you can see, we've got Salah, Mane, Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk, Firmino. Now, there are three players above this guy who are priced less. So we've got Alexander-Arnold, Robertson and Van Dijk all scoring more points than Firmino, and yet he's priced at 9.5. You've got Van Dijk at 6.5, you've got Robertson at 7, and you've got Trent at 7.5. Trent coming in 2 million cheaper, despite scoring a hell of a lot of more points than Robert Firmino. So for me, Robert Firmino, he's just been well overpriced in the game, and I just can't see him as an option. Don't get me wrong, I do think that he is a good player, and I think that he is one of those players which might become an option at some stage in the season. But looking at, his comparison with the likes of Trent and Robertson, even his comparison to Salah and Mane, I just don't think that he is a player that I want in my team. I just think he's been overpriced. If you look at him compared to other forwards within that bracket, Timo Verna also coming in at 9.5. He looks like a very, very well-priced player, and he's a player which, I'd much prefer in my FPL team. You look at other players, Ings, I think, is a great shout. Jimenez is a great shout. Both of these guys coming in cheaper than Firmino, and arguably, I think, have a better points potential than him. So for me, Firmino is definitely a player to avoid. Okay, so coming in, number 6 for my players to avoid, and it's a goalkeeper. So I haven't had a goalkeeper in the list, and I feel a little bit guilty for picking on this guy, because I do think, he is one of the best goalkeepers in the league. But generally, I think that you should avoid expensive goalkeepers. Now, don't get me wrong, this guy is a fantastic goalkeeper. He's playing in a team which is going to get a lot of clean sheets. But at 6 million, you look at the comparison to some of these guys last season. This is overall points, and you look, Pope, 170. He's got way more points than Ederson at 133. Bruyne coming in at 4.5, outscored Ederson coming in at 6.0 last season. That gives you an indication that, there isn't really worth going for expensive goalkeepers in this game. I'm considering Ryan. I'm also considering McCarthy. I'm not considering anybody above that, really. I was considering Ramsdale for a little bit. I think that he's a good shout. But for me, Ederson, yeah, I'm not interested in the slightest. You know, don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic quality goalkeeper, but for an FPL pick, he shouldn't really come anywhere near your team, and that's without taking into consideration that he's going to miss the first fixture. And you don't want to be rotating goalkeepers with somebody priced 6.0. You know, obviously you want him to play every single match, and he can't play the first match, so don't go anywhere near Ederson, or for that matter, an expensive goalkeeper. So I'd certainly look at the 4.5s in McCarthy and Ryan, possibly Ramsdale if you want to spend a little bit more. You could look at rotations, or you could just go with a 4.5 and a 4.0. You want to be freeing up those funds for the rest of your team. Okay, before we get on to number 7, it is a little bit of a controversial one, so make sure you stick around for that. I wanted to say just a thank you for the thousands of you that are signing up for Fantasy Football Hub membership, being blown away by the interest and the support. If you are interested in using all of the tools that I demonstrated in this video, OPTA Stats, comparison tool, fixture ticker, plus a whole load of other features, everything you need to dominate your FPL mini league this season, then I'll leave a link in the information card above and the description below. You of course get 25% off in our preseason discount, so if you have been thinking about becoming a Hub member, then now is the time to do it. Okay, so coming in at number 7, I want to say before I reveal who it is, I do really rate this player. I think he's going to be a fantastic pick at some point during the season, and I think he's a great young prospect, so don't go hating on me in the comments, but it is Mason Greenwood. Now, the reason I don't think he's a good pick is that at 7.5, I just think there are some better options. Obviously, Manchester United missed the first fixture, so I'm not that keen on, you know, going Manchester United players anyway. But if you compare him to someone like Foden, now I know, you know, Foden also misses the first fixture, so I think in some way it's a good comparison. I probably wouldn't go, I'm not sort of looking at Foden for my own team, but I think it's an interesting comparison. You compare these two players, and as you can see, Foden just absolutely bosses Greenwood on all the key numbers. Now, obviously, you've got to think about, you know, is Foden nailed on under Pep Guardiola? Potentially not, but he is coming in at 6.5 and Greenwood at 7.5, so you're saving a whole million by going with Foden. Now, Manchester United do have some favourable fixtures from game week 2, so I don't think, you know, Greenwood is a terrible shout, but I just think that there are better options around that price point, and, you know, Foden potentially being one of those picks as well. So for me, I think that certainly for the start of the season, I'm going to be avoiding Mason Greenwood. I'd like to see those numbers improve a little bit. He was very, very clinical towards the end of last season. I think that is his strength. So is he a player that can continually defy the numbers and continually get those goals despite not having many chances? I think I'd like to see a little bit more information, a little bit more evidence that he can do that on a regular basis before I consider him for my FPL team. As I said, I do think he is potentially a good FPL pick. You know, I had him towards the end of last season myself in my own team, but he was significantly cheaper then. So I think that there are a lot of good Manchester United players. Fernandes is one that I'm certainly considering. Obviously, he's much more expensive, and I really do like Martial as well. Potentially even Rashford. You know, I think Rashford might be a little bit overpriced, but I would probably be looking at Fernandes and Martial before I looked at Greenwood for my team. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for lots more FPL content coming up. Let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with any of these picks. Really interested to know your opinions and whether I missed any players out. Bye for now.